Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today I'm going to answer a question from a viewer which leads us into a conversation about a certain type of shoe. And this question comes from Michael, who says to me, I have owned a couple of pairs of boat shoes over the years but have never found them comfortable, nor do I own a boat. Therefore, I have recently been looking at loafers, but have never owned a pair. The choice of leather, suede, etc., different types of shoe, sole types, colours is overwhelming. And what do we decide? Tassel, no tassel? What would you recommend for casual summer use with chinos? I rarely wear shorts. I would not be wearing them for the office or formal wear. Is there a particular manufacturer that I should be concentrating on? Great question. Let us unpick what the loafer is all about. One thing I will say, quick question or answer to your question here, boat shoes. We don't wear boat shoes unless we're on a boat. All right, that is my personal opinion. I used to do a lot of offshore sailing in my younger years, and that is kind of a rule which I always set. I own boat shoes. They were great on the boat, but on dry land, they're not on their element. So, actually, it's a very pertinent question you ask about loafers, because I was recently reading an article in my newspaper, and in the style section, I noted that there was a lot of commentary about the recent revival of the loafer, particularly when it comes to the higher end of style. And reference was made to the fact that if you look at a lot of the leading men's outfits in the award season, which has just passed for the sort of film sort of industry, almost every outfit which the leading men who were on the red carpet were wearing, there was a loafer involved. Be that a snaffle loafer, horsebit loafer, penny loafer, whatever. Tassel loafer, there's many different types. So let's talk about the loafer and what it's all about. The loafer, in its form that we identify today, is thought to originate from a Norwegian slip-on shoe which was called the Åland moccasin. And it is believed that goes even further back. The design influences which created that Åland moccasin comes from the indigenous Americans who wore moccasins in their environment. And I guess if you look at many early men, when we started to evolve into wearing more organized clothing as our species has evolved, if you look in South America, for instance, they had the feldskone type of shoe. It's not dissimilar. It's the same sort of thing, but from a European origin. In the 1930s, the loafer, as we know it today, became really rather popular, particularly in the United States of America, where it formed the sort of nucleus of the footwear worn within what we would now describe as the preppy style. So we're talking about the 1930s and onwards. And famously, the loafer was worn by people like Frank Sinatra, JF Kennedy, people like that. So real movers and shakers and stylish people of the sort of 1930s and onwards era. Now, it's had a bit of a revival as a consequence of that, because the preppy style seems to be swinging back into focus over the last decade or so. So the loafer, I don't think it's ever gone out of fashion, but certainly it's becoming more revivalist in the modern era. And of course, there are good reasons for that. If you look at the loafer itself, there are several different types of them. You've got the penny loafer. I've already talked about the horsebit or snaffle loafer. And if you want to know why it's called that, it's kind of self-explanatory. But just to prove the point, I just wandered over to my wife's equestrian tack room over across the way, and I took a photograph of the snaffle which she uses with her horse. And even though hers is mostly plastic, which is better for the horse's mouth, you can see the origins of why it's called the horsebit or snaffle loafer in its practical design. And it's admittedly just a decorative adornment on that footwear today, but you can see where it gets that name from. The tassel loafer is just an additional piece of interesting decoration, really. The penny loafer, I think, is perhaps a little more towards the formal style, but all different types of loafers, all different types of things. Depends on your style, depends on what attracts your interest. And you know, there's a little bit of character there depending on what you think is right for you. Now, practicality is something which underpins the loafer really. A couple of reasons for that. Firstly, it doesn't involve the doing up or undoing of laces to take on or take off the footwear. So for some people, that is a very good reason to choose a loafer. In fact, there's a certain style of loafer called the lazy boy loafer, and I think that kind of encapsulates why the loafer is attractive to many people. They don't have to bother with laces. But you know, that's not the only reason. One of the reasons why the loafer is very popular is because it tends to be more comfortable. Because it tends to have a less rigid upper, you know, it maybe forms to the foot a little more. It can be a little more comfortable. It's also a little flatter, so it has less of a heel typically. So again, lots of reasons for the comfort there. And it tends to lend a little to the casual, in my opinion. So those features make it very attractive to many. So whether you're sort of navigating the urban jungle or whether you're just taking it easy in beachwear, the loafer may be the shoe which seeks to be the best for the situation you find yourself in. Now, my thoughts on the loafer, really and truly, I've not been much of a fan of the loafer as my style journey has unfolded in life. I don't own a pair right now, otherwise I'd have a pair here on the table to demonstrate, to show you. And I don't know why that is. I mean, I think really my style is quite conservative and somewhat old-fashioned. With a background in the military, as I do have, the lacing of shoes, the whole point of the shoe being quite formal, my leaning is more towards cap toe Oxfords or brogues. That's where I tend to come from. So maybe the loafer kind of passed me by a little bit, and my values are a little bit more, you know, conservative than maybe the loafer is in the modern world. However, I've always enjoyed it, you know, the loafer. There is a certain element of chic to it. I do have one memory of a loafer which did surprise me. Quite a few years ago, I'm going to say about 2002, 2003, by circumstance, I was involved with something professionally, and it led me to a meeting with the then Prime Minister, David Cameron, at 10 Downing Street. It was the first and actually the only time I've ever been to 10 Downing Street, and the first and only time I've ever met the Prime Minister. But I met him in Downing Street, and he was conservatively dressed, as you'd imagine, you know, Prime Minister as he is, navy suit, whatever he was wearing. But one thing struck me. He was wearing a pair of black penny loafers, which I thought was something of a casual style shoe for, you know, a world leader, really, a Prime Minister of the UK. You would have thought he would have been a little more conservatively dressed, particularly David Cameron, because he's quite a conservative, old-school fellow. Now, of course, Lord Cameron, the Foreign Secretary of the UK today, as I record this, but back then he was Prime Minister. And funnily enough, not long after, I remember thinking, oh, it's unusual to see the Prime Minister wearing loafers. Very shortly after, he was in the newspapers because he was totally eviscerated by the media because he was shown on holiday with his family. I think he was in Portugal or somewhere. And even in his off-duty clothing, really, when he was away with his family, he was seen wearing the same black loafers, and actually he was wearing them without socks. So, you know, almost like giving you the thought that, what, he only owns one pair of shoes, he has to wear them for work, and he wears them when he's on holidays. You know, this is a sort of a business shoe, but he's just taken his socks off and now he's wearing them, you know, in a casual way. So it was quite unfortunate for Mr. Cameron. He took a bit of a pasting for that. I'm sure that still haunts him to this day, but kind of tilted my view on loafers to a degree. Today, I think the loafer has come a long way in its place in men's style. And so much so, having made this video today, done a bit of research for it, I'm really interested in buying a pair of loafers for myself, and I'm planning to do so for the coming summer season. I'm filming this at the beginning of spring in the UK, so I think I'm going to give it a go, and I've done a bit of thinking about it. And when you start then to look at all the loafers which are available and their heritage, their history, it becomes quite a broad church to choose from. Now, probably the most famous of all the loafers is the Gucci horsebit loafer. And it's actually called the 1953 horsebit loafer, for good reason. Obviously came in 1953, something like 72 years ago now. And it is the classic loafer that most people will think of. Bit of a moccasin look to it. It is very much that original loafer that was very, very popular in its day. This was like the height of chic, as I remember, in the 80s and 90s, when it was a sign of conspicuous wealth to own a pair of Gucci loafers. Of course, they're made in Italy. Today, they're made in a whole variety of different colours, different materials. I think they're Blake stitched, so to my mind, they're not the best shoe in the world when it comes to construction. They cost upwards from £720. So that's their starting point, 720. And then it can go up into the 800s, 900s and so on, depending on the material you choose. I think for that price, it's quite a rich price for what I think is not necessarily an amazing pair of shoes. Blake stitched, doesn't look fantastically robust, to be honest. Never owned a pair, can't speak with conviction over this, but it's not something which I feel drawn to. They do also make a slightly more fashion-forward model called the Jordan loafer, and it draws a lot of its styling from the horsebit, the original, but it's got, as I say, more of a casual look to the toe. I prefer the Jordan, if I'm saying it right, loafer. I think it's certainly a bit more contemporary. I think it would work a little better in the modern era. It's the same price starting, 720 odd pounds, so quite expensive for what you actually get. I am drawn a little bit more to the more classic and the conservative. Now, Crockett & Jones, one of my favourite UK footwear manufacturers, certainly one of the better, more successful Northamptonshire-based manufacturers, they do have a loafer in their range. They haven't had one for a long time. In fact, the loafer which they produce today is called the Finchley 2 model. Now, it's the first loafer that they've had in their range since 1970. So it's relatively recent. It's a horsebit style loafer. So it draws heavily from the Gucci aesthetic, but I think they bring a far better edge to it. For a start, it's Goodyear welted. So you're looking at a shoe which is going to be much harder wearing. It's going to last a lot longer. It looks like you can take it on a good old walk and it's not going to let you down. It comes in two colours, black or a burnished brown colour. The burnished brown I'm feeling very drawn to. I think this will be a very wearable shoe with the majority of your wardrobe, certainly in the casual side of things. So, very, very, very good indeed. £570, so considerably cheaper than the Gucci horsebit for what I think is a far better shoe to look at, and certainly it's a shoe that's going to last 20 years. It's got a Goodyear welt, which means it can be renovated, replaced, that sole when it wears through. I doubt the Gucci is going to be that easy to fix up if it wears out. I'm sure it can be done, but I think if you look at Goodyear welting, it's going to be much better for you in the long run. So that's the only loafer they have in their collection of that style. I think that might be a viable option. As an alternative, for a lot cheaper, half that price, there's a brand which I'm going to recommend now, which I don't think many people look at seriously when they look at a solid Northamptonshire made shoe. And that's the company called Sanders, or Sanders and Sanders. But Sanders, most people refer to them as. They've been around since I think like the 1840s or something like that. They're a real traditional Northamptonshire based shoe company. They actually are lesser known because what they often do is they make white label products. So, brands will order a run of shoes from Sanders and Sanders and have their name branding put on it. So you might have been wearing Sanders shoes many times, but you don't know that because it's not branded as Sanders. But their own label products are very, very good. I say this because I own about 5 pairs of Sanders shoes, and because they are not super well known, they have a better price point. You find them a little cheaper than some of their more famous cousins in Northamptonshire. Now, they make a number of loafers, penny loafers, tassel loafers, but they make a really great casual penny loafer, which is called their Edwin model. This is predominantly it's an interesting construction. You've got a suede upper, and it comes in 3 colours, like a very light brown colour, almost like a milky colour. You've got a tobacco colour, which is the one I love. They also do a colour which I think they call it like ocean or something like that, and it's a navy blue. It's a penny loafer, as I say, but it's got a crepe sole. So crepe is coagulated latex, most commonly seen on desert boots, but it's also very, very practical, comfortable sole. Hard wearing, and really gives you great traction, very comfortable in the summer months. And it lends an immediately casual air to these loafers. Now, one of the classic questions you have to ask with loafers, with socks or without socks, all right? I'm going to say you never wear any footwear without a sock. Yes, you might wear an invisible sock, but I would not be wearing any sock with just your naked foot in there, because before long, natural perspiration will transfer various bacteria and things through your sweat into that shoe. It's going to smell. It's not going to be great at all. Even if you want to give the appearance of not wearing socks, you always need to wear an invisible sock to protect the footwear and just to make life a little more comfortable for yourself. But this loafer is one that you could wear with an invisible sock, or conceivably without a sock. Largely it is unlined inside, so making it light and comfortable for the summer months. I think suede is perfect for the summer months as well. Looks wonderful. And it's only £270 for a handmade Goodyear welted, albeit crepe sole, up there in Northamptonshire. I think that is a really approachable price for this penny loafer, which will be a lovely summer shoe. I might give it a spin myself. I think it's perfect. This would be an ideal shoe for wearing with chinos, as was asked by Michael, and casual shoes, clothing, maybe even absolutely. You could easily wear this with shorts. With an invisible sock, I think. So this is a loafer which can really cross-cut your wardrobe. I'm going to go luxury fantasy brand, and it's Gaziano and Girling. Much more expensive. They do a penny loafer called the Chadwick. It's made of mole suede. It's got oak bark tanned leather soles, and it is elite quality, and it's over £1,000. But I'm always going to give you an option there. You've got something modestly priced, something mid-priced, and something super high priced, depending on your price point. So there we go. That's my answer. Loafers, interesting. I'm going to give them a try this year. Let me know what you think. Are you a regular loafer wearer? Do you prefer tassels? Do you prefer penny? Is the horse bit something that you would wear, or is it too much of a throwback to those conspicuous wealthy days of the 80s and 90s, where Gucci became something of a toxic brand as time went on? Let me know your thoughts. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to come on this journey to Chap Nirvana by my side, click the subscribe button. If you'd like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee, you can become a patron, benefit from the additional video content, you can drop me a comment, or just drop me an email. I'd love to hear from you. And the links to everything there are in the show notes below. So until the next time, take care, wear your loafers in whatever environment you find yourself in, and I will see you again very soon.